She stole my invention, built her brand on lies, and left me humiliated in front of the one investor who could have changed my life. But now, years later, she reports to me every single day, unaware that the company she brags about running is mine. And at our upcoming summit, I'll step onto that stage, lock eyes with her, and watch her face collapse when the truth hits. I'm Emma Walsh, 29 years old, and I've always been obsessed with building things. When I was a kid, I'd rip apart old radios just to see how they worked. By the time I hit college, that obsession had turned into a real passion for developing clean tech, specifically modular battery systems that could extend the lifespan of any off-grid device. I wasn't flashy about it. I wasn't loud, but I was relentless. I spent most of my weekends soldering, coding, tweaking in the dorm basement while my peers went bar hopping. The prototype I finished during my junior year, an adaptive energy stabilizer, was the result of 18 months of work, 3 failed versions, and a near electrical fire. But when it finally worked, it felt like lightning in my hands. My professor told me it was a game changer, said if I pitched it right, I could land early-stage funding and build something real. That's when my older sister, Vanessa, started taking interest. Vanessa has always been the golden one. Perfect teeth, perfect GPA, perfect fake sincerity. She wasn't an engineer, had never touched a circuit board, but she was majoring in communications and could charm the air out of a balloon. When she found out about my invention, she suddenly became really supportive, bringing me coffee during my all-nighters, offering to help with branding, even offering to pitch with me if I got nervous. I thought it was sweet. I thought we were finally connecting as adults. So when a local investor agreed to meet with me, I let her tag along. I dressed in my one decent blazer, trembling with nerves. Vanessa looked like she was ready for a photo shoot, and when we walked into that cafe for the meeting, I had no idea I was handing her the gun she'd shoot me with. The investor asked who was the inventor. I opened my mouth, but Vanessa jumped in, slick, poised. "We've been working on this for months," she said. I should have stopped her, but I was in shock. And then it got worse. She pulled out my prototype, demoed it flawlessly like she'd built it herself, and smiled like the queen of Silicon Valley. I sat there mute, watching my own future being narrated by someone who hadn't even known what a capacitor was 3 weeks ago. That night, the investor emailed her, not me, and I didn't hear from either of them again. I told myself maybe it was a misunderstanding, that maybe Vanessa would loop me in, CC me on the next email, give credit where it was due. She didn't. In fact, when I asked her about it, she laughed it off like I was being sensitive. "Emma, relax. You hate public speaking. I was just helping you sell it. We're a team, remember?" No, we weren't. 3 days later, I found out she'd scheduled a second meeting with the investor without even telling me. I only knew because I saw her curling her hair at 7 a.m. in the kitchen, muttering something about a pitch deck and asking to borrow my flash drive. I asked where she was going and she said, "Just meeting a friend. You wouldn't be interested." I watched her walk out the door wearing the blazer I bought for the original pitch, the one I never got to finish. At that moment, something inside me cracked. It wasn't just about the project anymore. It was about the pattern. Vanessa had always found a way to claim the spotlight. In high school, she submitted my science fair project under her name. In college, she took credit for the social media strategy I built for her internship. Our parents never saw it. They just saw a shining star and a weird kid with burnt fingers and dusty notebooks. That second meeting must have gone well because she came back glowing. "He loved it," she said. "We're thinking of refining the model and maybe going for grant funding." I tried confronting her that night, told her it wasn't right, that she didn't build that device, that she didn't even understand how it worked. She shrugged. "Emma, no one cares who built the toaster. They care who sells it." I couldn't sleep after that. I sat at my desk staring at the blank screen of my laptop, the prototype sitting beside me, hollow. It was like watching a part of me get hollowed out in slow motion. A week later, she made it official. She registered the prototype under her name and filed a provisional patent. I only found out because I had an alert set on the model's working title. I clicked the link and saw her name in bold. I didn't cry. I deleted everything off my hard drive, packed up the prototype, and went silent. Vanessa had her invention, but she had no idea what I was about to do next. It was like I vanished. One day, I was on the brink of something extraordinary, and the next, I was invisible, even to my own family. Vanessa started posting online about her journey as a young innovator, complete with staged photos of her pretending to work on circuits she couldn't even name. My parents were thrilled. "She's finally putting that charm to use," my dad said over dinner. "Isn't it amazing what she and Emma did together?" Together. I didn't bother correcting them. I didn't have the energy. Every time I tried to speak up, I was met with vague nods or awkward silences. Vanessa had gotten ahead of the story. She told everyone she was the visionary and I was just helping with the technical stuff, which to her meant I didn't matter. The investor ghosted me entirely. I emailed, called, even left a voicemail asking if we could meet again. Nothing. She must have spun some story about me being unstable or controlling because I knew the work spoke for itself, but nobody was listening anymore. In a span of 2 weeks, all the work I had poured my soul into was gone. My dreams, my pitch, my future, taken and paraded around like a trophy in someone else's hands. I kept quiet, but inside, I was combusting. I stopped going to family dinners. I couldn't stand watching her bask in something she didn't earn. I moved out of the shared apartment and into a basement studio on the other side of town. The floor creaked, the heat barely worked, but it was mine. That was the lowest point. I remember staring at the dark ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if I'd wasted my life chasing something no one would ever see. If maybe I should just let it go, get a real job, and forget I ever wanted more. But then I opened my old notebooks, the ones with all the failed sketches and calculations that led to that prototype. I saw the margin notes, the trial logs, the sticky notes I'd written to myself like, "You're close." That's when I realized Vanessa could steal a moment, but she couldn't steal my mind. I still had the core designs in my head. The tech she ran with? It wasn't even the final version. I'd never shown anyone the self-optimizing module I was developing. Because I hadn't finished it yet, I decided then and there I wouldn't fight her. I'd outgrow her, quietly and completely. I spent the next 8 months in that freezing basement apartment, living on instant noodles, freelance coding gigs, and the tiniest scraps of pride I had left. I didn't tell anyone what I was working on. Not my old classmates, not my professors, not even my roommate from undergrad who always said she believed in me. Silence became my shield and focus, my only weapon. Vanessa was making waves online, going viral for TEDx-style Instagram clips and shallow interviews where she regurgitated buzzwords she barely understood. Energy democratization this, adaptive scalability that. I watched them in silence, analyzing what she'd pitched and what she hadn't. She had the shell of my original invention, but not the heart of it. And that's where my advantage lived. I stripped everything back to the bones and rebuilt the stabilizer from scratch. I made it smaller, smarter, more modular. It could now auto-adjust to power input from any source, solar, wind, grid, or kinetic, and optimize output for specific devices. I taught myself new programming languages to integrate the software I wanted. It became more than a battery stabilizer. It became a smart energy hub. I named it Nova, a rebirth. But this time, I didn't go the traditional route. No investors, no demo days. No startup accelerators filled with VCs who looked like they'd steal your lunch and tell you to thank them for it. Instead, I found forums, quiet corners of the internet where eco-engineers and preppers and off-grid nerds hung out. I offered a beta version to a small community and asked for brutal feedback. They loved it. They helped me refine it. Word spread? Quietly, but steadily. Then I launched a Shopify site under a pseudonym, E.W. Blackstone. It sounded like an old-school energy firm. I built a logo, shot a couple clean demo videos, ran cheap Facebook ads. Within 2 months, I sold out of my first production run. Nova was alive. And Vanessa? She had no idea. She was still coasting on magazine fluff pieces, using my dead prototype to apply for speaking gigs, slowly realizing no one was buying the product because it didn't work. I almost felt bad. Almost. Until I saw her post a passive-aggressive tweet. Turns out not everyone is built to be an entrepreneur, especially when they get too hung up on details. That's when I made a quiet promise to myself. Next time she saw my name, it'd be too late to apologize. The orders kept rolling in. Quietly, consistently. I reinvested every dime back into the business. New tools, better components, a tiny team of 2 remote engineers I found on a green tech Discord. Nova became Nova Edge, and we expanded from single units to custom solutions for small-scale farms, off-grid startups, and independent researchers. But I still kept it all under the pseudonym. E.W. Blackstone wasn't just a name anymore, it was a firewall. It gave me the freedom to grow without interference, without old professors trying to loop Vanessa in, or family checking in the moment they smelled success. I didn't want validation. I wanted control. Within 18 months, Nova Edge had its first major win, a partnership with the Sustainable Housing Initiative out west. They bought 200 units outright. Suddenly, we were real. We weren't flashy. We weren't on magazine covers. But in the right circles, people knew who we were. And that's exactly when I saw the job application. I almost choked on my tea. Vanessa Walsh, applying for a senior brand strategy role at Nova Edge. Her resume was loaded with nonsense, visionary leader, early-stage product innovator, thought leader in adaptive energy. I had to read it 3 times just to make sure it wasn't a prank. But it wasn't. She was unemployed. Apparently, after months of stalling and missed promises, her investor pulled out. The prototype failed in real-world testing because she couldn't explain or iterate on the design. The buzz dried up. Her social media became quieter. The public visionary had no product, no paycheck, and no place left to land. So she landed here, in my inbox. She had no clue that E.W. Blackstone was me. No clue that the company she just begged to join was the one I built from the ashes of her betrayal. My COO, Alan, an older, brilliant guy who had no idea about my sister's past, forwarded me her application with a casual, "She looks like she could be useful. Want me to bring her in for a chat?" I replied, "Sure. Let's see what she's got." But I didn't stop there. I scheduled the interview myself, using my alternate email. Alan would lead, but I'd sit in, watching, listening. Vanessa had taken everything from me once. This time, I'd be the one holding the power, and she wouldn't even know it. The interview was everything I imagined and worse. Vanessa walked in like she owned the building. Heels clicking, teeth gleaming, that overconfident sway in her voice she always used when she was bluffing through something. She didn't recognize me, of course. I wasn't in the room physically. I was watching from the glass conference room next door, sipping lukewarm coffee, quietly holding back laughter. She wore a deep green blazer and a gold necklace I recognized from Mom's old jewelry box. Some things never changed. Alan did most of the talking. He was polite, intrigued, and, like many others before him, briefly dazzled by her charm. She talked about leading an energy startup and building relationships with investors, completely rewriting history to make herself the underdog founder who was betrayed by greedy partners. I nearly snorted into my cup. My favorite part? She pitched Nova Edge like it was the exact kind of company she could have built if she'd had a better team back then. Alan raised an eyebrow at that, clearly amused. So you're saying you'd feel at home here? Absolutely, she said, beaming. This company feels like it was made for me. Oh, Vanessa, if only you knew. Alan and I discussed it afterward. He was hesitant at first, said her actual business experience looked thin, but admitted she had the gift of persuasion. Might be useful for client relations? She's not running anything technical. I gave him the green light. Bring her in, but start her under Marcy and onboarding. No perks, no title fluff. Let's see what she does when no one's watching. And just like that, my sister, who once said I wasn't built for business, started working for me. She didn't know who the founder was. E.W. Blackstone was still a mystery, even to some of our own staff. That was intentional. I let the product speak, not the persona. Watching her stumble through Slack channels, asking confused questions about systems she once pretended to invent, was nothing short of poetic. She bragged to coworkers about her past as a CEO while fetching onboarding packets and running minor errands for junior staff. She even dropped hints that maybe one day she'd move up the ladder quickly because of everything she brought to the table. I just smiled quietly. The table was mine, the chairs were mine, and the floor beneath her feet, mine too. I finally met her face to face on week 3. Up until then, she'd only heard my name in emails. I was careful. Everyone just referred to me as Emma W., head of R&D. Not the founder, not the owner, just another cog in the machine. It gave me breathing room and control. But then Alan set up a cross-department brainstorming session. Said it would be good for her to meet more of the team. You should drop in, he told me. Get a read on how she's doing. I'm still not sure she's all she claims to be. I walked into the meeting room a few minutes late, holding a tablet and pretending to be mildly distracted. She was already seated, laughing at something Marcy said, her confidence ballooning. Her eyes landed on me, and for half a second, I saw hesitation. Emma? She said, tilting her head like I was vaguely familiar, but not worth the brainpower. I nodded. We've met before. Briefly. She blinked, clearly trying to place me. I could see her mentally scrolling through all the people she'd stepped on and discarded. Well, nice to meet you again, she chirped, her voice sugary and thin. I've heard great things. R&D is impressive. I gave her a polite smile and sat across the table. Thanks. We try. The session began, and people started tossing out ideas for a new product feature, a modular fast charge interface for Nova units. Vanessa, clearly eager to prove herself, immediately launched into a monologue about user-centric optimization and intuitive design while citing features that had been retired 2 product cycles ago. I watched her stumble through a half-baked explanation of how modular inverters worked, all while mispronouncing 2 core components and referencing a term I literally invented. It was surreal, like watching someone try to dance to music they couldn't hear. Then came the kicker. She leaned forward, eyes gleaming, and said, "This reminds me so much of a system I created a few years ago. It didn't get off the ground because of team issues, but it had a very similar power optimization model." The room went quiet. My fingers curled around my pen. I looked right at her. Oh yeah? What was it called? She hesitated. I think we just called it the Pulse at the time. It was an early prototype. I stared. That was my working name, before I scrapped it. She didn't flinch. She didn't recognize me at all. And I realized in that moment, she had rewritten the lie so well she believed it, but I hadn't forgotten, and I wasn't done. After that meeting, I started seeing her everywhere. She strutted around the office like she owned the place, offering unsolicited branding tips to engineers, calling minor tweaks visionary insights, and trying way too hard to impress anyone within earshot, because she even bought a new pair of glasses she didn't need, claiming it gave her tech credibility. It was exhausting and hilarious at the same time. One afternoon, I caught her in the break room telling one of our interns that Nova Edge reminded her of a little project she once worked on, and that she was sure she could help take things to the next level if given the right audience. I had to walk away before I laughed out loud. Meanwhile, our actual team, brilliant, self-taught, passionate people who had bled for the product, started noticing the cracks. Marcy confided in me during a late-night Slack exchange. She keeps suggesting ideas we already killed in V2, and she gets weirdly defensive when corrected. I think she's in way over her head. I replied with a simple, just observe, don't confront. Yet, Vanessa was so busy playing the expert, she never stopped to wonder who might be watching. She never questioned how someone like her, with 0 real innovation record, got hired at a firm as cutting edge as Nova Edge. She just assumed she'd charmed her way in again, like always. And she had no idea that every pitch, every bold suggestion, every anecdote she shared about her past brilliance was being reviewed by the woman who had built the very foundation she was standing on. The irony? She praised E.W. Blackstone constantly. Oh, he's a genius, she said once in a team huddle. I love the vision behind this brand. It speaks to everything I've believed in since day one. Someone joked, You talk about him like you've met him. She smirked. Well, let's just say I've worked on things at his level before. I smiled from across the room because E.W. Blackstone was sitting 10 feet away, quiet, patient, and one breath away from ending her entire illusion. But I didn't want drama yet. I wanted her comfortable. Because the best part of revenge isn't the moment it hits, it's the silence right before. It happened on a Thursday. We were deep in prep for our annual product summit, our biggest event of the year. Teams were finalizing demos, rehearsing presentations, perfecting every slide and sentence. Vanessa had been assigned to a support role, coordinate media kits, assist speakers, help with client liaisons. Nothing fancy, nothing central. But that wasn't enough for her. During a brainstorming session for next year's campaign, she suddenly stood up and said, I have something. A concept I've been holding on to for years, and I think this company is finally ready for it. The room quieted. She smiled like she was revealing a secret cure for cancer. Then she began describing my original invention, not the evolved version we now sell through Nova Edge, but the clunky, early prototype she stole. She framed it like some lost idea from her forgotten past that had never seen the light of day. She used phrases like self-optimizing flow, adaptive battery cycles, and this one nearly made me choke, a stabilizer core I designed in college. I was sitting in the back, flipping through a report, pretending not to listen, but every word made my stomach twist tighter. Marcy shot me a look from across the room. Well, she knew. Alan leaned toward me and whispered, Didn't we already develop something just like this 2 years ago? I nodded slowly, almost to the component. Vanessa wrapped up with a confident, If we can find a way to integrate that core idea, I think we'll leapfrog the competition. She sat down, smiling like she'd just saved the company. I tapped my tablet, pulled up the internal archive, and projected the time-stamped Nova V1 documentation to the main screen. My name at the top, the original diagrams, the one she took. The room froze. Someone near the front muttered, Wait, isn't that already part of our legacy product? Alan turned to Vanessa. You said you designed this. She blinked. Well, yes, but I stood up, calm, firm. You didn't design that? You pitched it once, sure, but you didn't build it. You never understood how it worked. And if we're being honest, this company exists because someone did. Her face went pale. She looked at me, eyes narrowing. For the first time, I saw her doubt flicker, and I knew, deep down, she was starting to put it together. I didn't confront her that day. I didn't need to. I let the silence stretch, let the questions pile up around her, let her sweat through awkward clarifications and backpedals. She left the room rattled, not defeated yet, but shaken, which was perfect, because the summit was 2 days away. Every year, Nova Edge hosts a private summit for clients, partners, and a select group of media insiders. It's not flashy, no big press releases or overhyped product launches, just solid tech, real innovation, and one keynote at the end from our founder. Until now, that founder had never shown their face. We kept it anonymous intentionally. E.W. Blackstone was a symbol, not a personality. It gave us mystique. But this year, I told Alan it was time. Are you sure? He asked. You really want to do this? I nodded. She's earned it. The night of the summit, the ballroom buzzed with energy. Clients mingled, engineers showed off working prototypes. And Vanessa? She was assigned to the media booth. She wore a black dress and red lipstick, smiling through every conversation, still unaware of what was coming. When it was time for the keynote, the lights dimmed. The Nova Edge logo appeared on the screen. The crowd applauded. Then Alan walked on stage and said, Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, please welcome our founder and CEO, Emma Walsh, also known as E.W. Blackstone. There was a beat of silence, then gasps. I walked onto that stage in a tailored suit, calm and steady. The spotlight hit my face. I looked straight into the crowd until I found her. Vanessa stood frozen near the back of the room. Her smile dropped. Her hands shook. She wasn't breathing. I smiled. Some of you know me as a quiet engineer. Others know me as a pseudonym. But tonight, I want you to know the truth, because truth is what this company was built on. I told the story, not in petty detail, but with precision, about the theft, the silence, the rebirth, about building something real out of betrayal. She didn't recognize me, I said, voice steady, because she never really knew me to begin with. But I know who I am, and now, so do you. The room erupted in applause. And my sister? She turned trembling and walked out the door. She didn't show up to work the next day, or the next week. HR said she emailed a vague letter about misaligned values and toxic leadership, clearly an attempt to rewrite the narrative before anyone could call her out directly. But the truth had already made its rounds. Quietly at first, then like wildfire. The summit video went semi-viral in the tech space. Industry forums started buzzing. LinkedIn lit up with posts about integrity, stolen credit, and poetic justice. Vanessa's name didn't come up directly. I didn't need to drag her. I just told my story, and let the facts speak louder than any smear campaign she might try. Alan called me into his office a few days later. You okay? He asked, genuinely concerned. I nodded. Better than ever. He smiled. Did you ever think you'd get this moment? No, I admitted. But I stopped needing it. That's why I finally got it. Vanessa tried once, just once, to reach out after that, an email with no subject line. I didn't know it was you. I was young. I was stupid. But you could have told me. You could have warned me. I didn't respond. Because here's the thing. She knew enough to stop. She just didn't want to. Not until she hit a wall she couldn't climb. I didn't fire her. She fired herself. And now, I'm still building. Nova Edge is expanding into Europe. We just finalized a deal with a green infrastructure startup that will put our tech into hundreds of sustainable housing units. My team is loyal, passionate, real. Vanessa's name occasionally pops up in niche consulting circles, but it doesn't stick. People ask questions now. They remember the summit. And me? I finally walk into every room as myself. No masks, no pseudonyms, no fear. She taught me that sometimes silence isn't noble. Sometimes it's just the long inhale before the most satisfying exhale of your life. And I'm breathing easy now. Have you ever had someone close to you steal your work, your voice, or your dream, and act like it was never yours to begin with? You're not alone. This story wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was mine, about building something real in the shadows of betrayal and turning silence into strength. So if you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or outright robbed of credit you earn, know this. Your story isn't over. You don't need permission to rebuild. You don't need their applause to matter. And when the moment comes to show the world who you really are, let it be undeniable. If my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to define success on their own terms, that you don't have to scream to be powerful. You just have to know, deep in your bones, that you were never the imposter. You were the architect. Leave a comment below if you've ever had someone take credit for something that was yours, or if you've ever had to rise quietly, patiently, until the day the truth finally walked in behind you. Your voice matters. Don't let anyone write your story for you.